like I said, I came here to do music and on camera stuff.
Right.
And I was doing MacGyver and St. Elsewhere and Hill Street and God, Amazing Stories and Love American Style. I mean, all kinds, and probably 35 on camera commercials.
That's a
But
lot.
just like, yeah, it was a lot. But just like you said, I get 2 or 3 in a year,
Yeah.
and the residuals would overlap, but then I'd still be cleaning apartments or reading for stuff or all of that. And it took me probably 4 or 5 years to get to the point where I could make a living. But a
Right.
living just meant a better quality of ramen.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I moved here and I was 22 and we bought the home in which we still live, and I was 33.
Wow.
And I remember Chris thinking, uh, and like I was 33 with a 5-year-old. And I
Wow.
remember thinking, holy Christ, unless I win the lottery, like I would go to friends' homes who would get a series. And I'd been living in an apartment for 10 years. And I would go to a home of a buddy, a guy I'd been in acting class with, and I'd get a series.
Mm-hmm.
And they're living in Sherman Oaks, but it's a 2,500 square foot home.
Yeah.
And I'd be going, oh my God, unless I win the lottery, I will not. How much did you pay for your home? Well, I paid $650 for it. Fuck me. And I thought, I will never do this. I cannot. Oh, well, you better get used to it. How much do you love being creative? And the truth is that I couldn't get beyond it. I mean, you and I are like probably some of the sweet folks watching. That is to say that we can't not do it.
Right.
And there comes a point, and we've been lucky enough to fall on the plus side.
Yeah.
There are points where relationships, marriages, families get broken up because the actor says, this is where my heart is. And I go, what about me? What about your children?
Yeah.
Well, I love you. Of course I love my children. Dude, you're 41. You haven't worked in 6 months.
Yeah.
And you and I know people like that.
Oh yeah.
And it's hard.
Older than that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. This is what I do, by the way. We're live and they can see you.
Oh, hi guys.
Yeah, this is kind of how I've been doing it these days. It's like, oh yeah, that's Rob Paulsen there, by the way. And
hi,
anyway,
folks.
back to what we're talking about. Yeah, I don't have a big opening. I just sort of come on and I.
You know what? I have a big opening, but I'm trying to get sutured shut just because it's so disgusting. Oh, wait a minute. I probably shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry.
No, this is an 18+ stream. So there you go. You say whatever. Exactly. So yeah, we have plenty of friends on the stream here. Hi everybody. Hi
guys.
One of my mods is Kristallum Oxide. She's in Germany. So yeah, this is the amazing thing about the interwebs is that you can have a stream.
Isn't it something?
Somebody decides they want to help out and they live on the other side of the world. And there you go.
Well, guten Tag, nurse. Hello, how you doing?
There you go. Yeah, and for a lot of you folks already know because you have. First of all, you've grown up listening to Rob's voice, and
which is not to be confused with thrown up listening to my voice, because that happens too.
Yes, that does happen. When the grow up is passed by the throw up, then that's when they say, "Well, sorry, Rob, you're."
Here comes the hook.
Yeah,
yeah.
I've joked about this before. There are stages to a career, and the first stage is who is Rob Paulsen. Second stage is get me Rob Paulsen. Third stage is get me a non-union or a cheaper Rob Paulsen or a younger Rob Paulsen. And then finally, who is Rob Paulsen?
Who is Rob Paulsen?
It's the growth chart. Oh, baby, toddler, kid.
I know.
Adult. And then they start to stoop. And
understood.
If you're lucky, you can have a career like Rob Paulsen because your career has had many chapters to it. And speaking of chapters... Did we create, June McGee, one of my mods, did we create the command for the stream where they can see Rob's book on Amazon? I hope we did. If not, I embedded I think I embedded a link to it.
A book thing?
Yeah, a book thing. There should be, Jude and Kristallum, if you guys have the command, it's for Rob's book, There it is. All right. See, want to know more about Rob Paulsen? Check out his book. It's available to purchase here. It's called Voice Lessons. And basically, folks, first of all, if you want to know a little bit about voice acting, if you want to know a little bit about what it's like to get into the business and suffer the slings and arrows, and then to do that after facing a major health challenge that threatens your livelihood and your life, well, you won't do better than this book. I'll tell you that.
Thank you, Chris.
Yes. So anyway, let me start by letting you talk. How are you feeling? How are you doing?
I'm breathing and I'm not in jail, but the day's not over yet, hotshot.
Hopefully I won't expire before the show ends, because that's really inconvenient for you. Nah, man, I'm doing great, honestly. And thank you very much for referencing the book.
Sure.
Firstly, you guys are very fortunate to have someone like Chris Edgerly to do this sort of thing on a regular basis. I don't have to tell you guys Chris's pedigree. He's the real deal. But moreover, when you have a guy who's a peer and a world-class talent say to you, by the way, I read your book, that really means a lot, because firstly, it's just nice that anybody pays attention. But when a person who's a friend and a peer and a world-class talent actually takes the time to read your book so that he can ultimately make it about me as his guest, that tells you all you need to know about the guy who's running the show. And thank you, Chris. That speaks very highly of you, because a lot of people, understandably, do shows. You want to build up your. I'm no different. We want to build up our social media following, all of that stuff. But there are people in Hollywood who are really good at self-promotion, and it's necessary.
Yeah.
But there are also people like Chris, and I can reference people whom we all know by name, who are very well-known people in Hollywood, who move through their lives with a certain amount of grace, and because they get how important it is to make it about someone else, that by doing that, you engender the kind of respect that Chris Edgerly gets. And all it does, and that there are others who don't get it, and they just make it about themselves. And those are the kind of people where you want to say, you better save your money, because you're pretty good, but sooner or later it goes away. And so that is not to blow smoke, but that's why people dig you, man, because you are the real deal.
It's very kind of you. My head's not going to be able to fit through the door, but
no, but it's true.
I'll take the compliment.
And it really is true. And you know what I'm talking about. Like a guy like Matt Groening is the same way.
Yeah.
Matt is a guy who it's not about money. He's got all the money he needs. Everybody knows who he is. But when you talk to Matt, and I don't know Matt, but I know a lot of people, you and Nancy Maurice, all my Hank, everybody, people I know, Harry, worked for, Danny forever. And he's like other great people. He knows who butters his bread. He knows that he's the genius behind Chris, but he's also the first guy to say, I know who to hire for this. I'm going to let Chris do this because I know he's going to kill it. And that's part of the genius and the ethos of great people. They make it about someone else, and that is a tried and true formula, and it's authentic.
Yeah.
It's great. So, anyway, that's a very long-winded answer to your question.
So
I'm
you're
doing
feeling
good.
good.
I'm grateful to be here. So thanks for having me.
Oh, sure. And I get to, after we're done here, I get to record for The Simpsons after this. I get to step in my booth and throw down some stuff for them. And every now and then people will ask me, what's it like to work on the show? And the one answer I have is that they still really enjoy making this show. It's been on for over 30 years, and I still see them really care about what they're putting down on paper, what they're recording, what they're showing. They really do care. I hear them have long conversations about, I don't think this scene is quite working. I don't think this voice is quite there. It's like, I don't know if he or she would say that. It's like, these are not people that are just on autopilot. They really do care about it.
Right. And look, you and I were just discussing this before we went on air.
Yeah.
Look, you guys, we've both been rich and we've been poor, and rich is way better.
Yeah.
But I have to tell you that the creative force and the drive to stay, I mean, we're talking about the longest running show in the history of television. And it's not by accident.
No.
And the reason that Al Jean and Sam Simon, all the people who've been involved, everybody, Matt and his crew, all you guys, Steven Spielberg, over and over again, it's not about the money at that level.
No.
I mean, I'll never earn that kind of, well, I'm not, you know what? I'm going to leave the possibility open.
Yeah.
But my point is, they're driven still by the same Jones to create that all of us who are watching that are in that realm, and the two knuckleheads you see before you, we felt this way at 10 years old.
Yeah.
And I'm 64 now.
Yeah.
And the very reason that I still work out every day, my creative stuff, and write things down and record them, because, I got a place for that guy or that creature or that woman. I got a place. I'm going to put that down because I'll forget it, is no different. I swear to Christ, it's no different than it was when I was 10 years old in Livonia, Michigan.
Yeah.
Doing it because it made my soul happy. And I work with David Copperfield on a little creature he's got in his mind-blowing magic show that he does 15, 17, I don't know. Guys, same age as I. He does 2 shows 7 days a week,
Really?
3 on Sunday.
Really?
Right? At 64. Guy's worth $1 billion with a B dollars. And then all he knows, Chris, is I cannot wait to come up with the next zillion-dollar creation that blows people's minds. Guy hasn't needed a dime for 30 years.
I know.
It's not about that.
Right.
And I love to see that in the people who are the most successful and the best of us in terms of, their track record. And they're driven by the same creative spirit. It's fantastic.
Yeah. I remember I was, let's see, because I went into stand-up comedy out of college, and I had spent a few years just sort of making ends meet as a road comic. And I was visiting my dad. He lived in Texas, and he had retired. And my dad was born in 1941. So obviously he's of the generation that you go to school, you get a degree, you work, and then you retire. And
you hang on to that job.
Yeah, you hang on to that job because he had, let's see, he was in the Army, and then out of that, he went into the government, and he stayed in that field till he retired in his late 50s. And he said, your generation is baffling to me. He says, you guys actually think about what you want to do. In my day, we got a job and you held that job and then you retired. And one day visiting him, he was driving me around and he said, so how much money do you think you're going to make this year? And I told him, and there was this pause, and he said, you think you'd ever consider doing something else? And I said, no.
Nope.
No. As quickly as he thought to ask me, that was my answer. No, Dad.
Isn't that interesting?
This is it. I've tried to have other jobs. I'm horrible at them, and people know it.
I'll tell you, as I referenced in my book, I still remember the day. My parents are both gone now. My mom was born in 1926 and my dad in 29. So they were very cognizant of the Second World War and vaguely remember the Depression. But I remember clearly being the oldest in my family, 4 children. I'm the example. So I had been accepted into the University of Michigan. I attended for a year, and I came home, and I was still addicted to that Jones of performing. And I remember coming home and saying to my parents, I sucked it up and said, I'm wasting your money and my time because you encouraged all of us to perform, because my parents did that, community theater and stuff, waiting for Guffman. But they created a monster with me.
Yeah.
And they said, well, I mean, it was not received well for the same reasons that your father kind of referenced. Like, are you kidding me? Well, go get your degree and then maybe try this pipe dream. And I said, no, I understand. They said, well, you know, the money that's following you to Ann Arbor, that doesn't follow you to wherever you go, right? You do know that. And yeah, I know it. And I got to say, it took my dad probably a year. It pissed him off and it broke his heart because his oldest kid is a Wolverine, you know, sports guy, all that stuff. But that hook was set so deep that I was willing to go to my parents, whom I lived to impress. They loved me. They loved my siblings. And it took every ounce of chutzpah. This is coming from a non-Jew.
Yeah.
Every ounce of chutzpah I had to say, I know you love me, but I can't do this.
Yeah.
This is really authentic. And it worked out. And they were luckily, you know, they got to see that I'm okay.
Right.
But man, same thing. I'm only a second generation American. My grandparents on both sides came from Denmark and Macedonia. And they were about, you get a job, you hold on to it. We're going to make sure that all our kids go to college. And that's the American dream.
Yeah.
And so I was, it's a very difficult circumstance, but now we live in a time when people really do things like, I think I really do want to make porcelain fish and sell them on Etsy.
Yeah. And they do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Music.
This, for the folks on the chat who have asked me before about voice acting, how to get in, or how did I get in, or how do you follow your muse when the vagaries of the real world are pounding at your door? This is a good conversation for you to listen in on, because like in Rob's case, like the voice that keeps coming up here in the chat is Carl Weezer. Is that Carl Weezer?
Yeah, that's me. How are you going to finish that croissant? Yeah. I'm a sex machine.
So there are these touchstones that you're a part of. And again, for some people who are really young, these aren't shows that you would have grown up with, but you're going to see them repeated throughout your life, because that's what happens. That's what happens with shows that get into the national consciousness. They keep repeating. So for you, the ones that are really obviously the ones that prick up everyone's ears are Ninja Turtles, Animaniacs, Pinky and the Brain. Those are the ones that you know, I mean, geez, one of them put an Emmy on your shelf.
How about that?
Yeah, how about that? So, yeah, you've been a part of these iconic shows, but as you were saying, it's a struggle to get there. It didn't just fall into your lap.
No, and it's not supposed to. And I have to tell you, I mean, you come from pretty similar stock. You're younger, but, you know, the stock is the stock. And nothing has happened to me in my career in terms of the struggle. And I say that in quotes because struggle is relative.
Yeah.
Nothing happened to me in my career that I didn't expect. I did not expect to drive out here in my little Honda from Michigan and have, you know, the doors of Paramount open up and say, oh my God, thank goodness you're here, because we've been waiting for you.
The cameras are rolling. We're just sitting around.
Right. Just ready. Wait, makeup is waiting. Go. We're ready for you to start your career.
Yeah.
It was not that. And you and all our Billy West, DiMaggio, Maurice, you know, all my stand-up buddies. I was an improv guy and a music guy and theater, you know. But every time, and it still gets, every time it goes like this, because it's the nature of, it's the nature of the economy now. If there was ever a time in which we're living that axiom that we're all in this together, when has there ever been a more profound example of it? But when you're in one of the creative endeavors, if you listen to anybody or read any book, you know that it goes like this. Okay. So even still, when it goes like this, and I have to say that when I was speaking at my dad's funeral, one of the things that I said my father imbued, especially me, because I chose this path was a feeling of personal responsibility, because the people of your father and my father's generation grew up with utter feelings of personal responsibility.
Yeah.
And you guys, young and old, I can't tell you how important those two words are, because when it really sucked, I gave myself about 30 seconds to feel bad for myself. Because you know what? The surprise is nobody ever put a gun to my head and said, you better be an actor.
Right.
Never. In fact, your father and my father said,
Almost.
What? You know? And for no other reason than because it's a logical question to ask.
Yeah.
When you're talking about your very own flesh and blood, your father would have died for you. And my parents too. So of course they're going to say, what the hell's the matter with you? So when you get to a position when you're doing exactly what your soul, and that's not hyperbole, because there are people listening to this know exactly what we're talking about. And it could be opening your own business.
Yeah.
When there's something that drives you so powerfully that you cannot not do it, then when it goes south, it's on you.
Mm-hmm.
When it goes north, it's also on you.
Mm-hmm.
But the times, that's why I say struggle, because yeah, it can be difficult. But you know what a tough job is? A tough job in this day and age is being a cop. A tough job in this day and age is being a black cop.
Yeah.
A tough job anytime is working on a farm.
Yeah.
A tough job anytime is pouring hot tar in August in Texas.
Yeah.
Those are really hard jobs.
Right.
And often the jobs that our parents, for people our ages, that they took, they didn't. My father spent the last 15 years, Chris, of his working life miserable. Mm-hmm. But that's just part of the deal, dude. This is what happens. I've been able to make a living, put all my kids through school. Pretty soon I'm going to be able to retire. I hate my job, but I'm doing it because I can take care of my family and because we can vacation 2 weeks a year. Yeah. That's why they're doing it. I couldn't live that way.
Right.
So I know, you know what I mean? So for me, the struggle is relevant, or relative rather. And the struggle is about enjoying the ride. It sounds kind of hokey and feather wavery, but if you can really learn to enjoy the process, then you can call friends like Chris or Nancy Cartwright or whomever and say, Jesus Christ, I had 4 callbacks to network and they decided they would go with an Asian American actor. And you know what? They made the right choice. But I had 4 callbacks.
Yeah.
I was the guy. And then I can call friends like you and you say, dude, I so get it. Jesus Christ, I so get it. Thanks for calling, man. But you know what? I'll see you at acting class, or I'll see you at the table read of whatever. You know, you surround yourself with like-minded people. We all really do depend on each other to celebrate our successes and to be involved for our times when it fails and when it goes south. And that, I swear to you now, at my age, has been the joyful outcome of this. I love that there are people who I can share this, not only our relative successes, but you give me a platform to talk to all these people who in a wonderfully creative way are going to be gunning for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's exactly how it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Christopher Hitchens, may he rest in peace, once said that, we're supposed to die so we can make room for the next people.
The next
you realize
one.
that, say, we're supposed to be immortal. Maybe one day medicine and technology will allow us to live a few hundred years. But even then, on the relative time scale of the universe, we're going to have to get out of the way.
Of course. And we got to make room for the next, Chris and Rob. And what is so wonderful is that there are people watching this who may be inspired by you and me.
Right.
And the people who are our dearest friends in the world also happen to be the most creative humans that have ever walked. Mm-hmm. And you know what else, you guys? They're really nice people. They really, really are. We know the same people. Mm-hmm. And I promise you, I can count literally literally, after 40 years in show business in Hollywood, I can count on one hand the number of assholes who would be that way in any realm.
Yeah.
Right. Virtually everybody else, we know a lot of people who are millionaires. We know a lot of people who are very successful. And any one of the people who are watching us right now, if they encountered them and made a fuss over Maurice LaMarche or Frank Welker or Nancy Cartwright or Tress MacNeille or Pam Hayden, those actors would go, oh, really? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And it's authentic. And that's what I love about this. It's just, they want other people to come and they want other folks because we were you.
Right.
It's the greatest.
I remember Jerry Seinfeld told a story where he was, I think he was at the Emmys, and I think the crew won an Emmy for writing. And he says, I'd been watching this cavalcade of perfectly sculpted human beings come up all night long and accept their awards, these beautiful people. And then the writers won for an Emmy, and these troglodytes came up on stage. These guys that were like me. He says, we're not camera ready. We're not, we don't know how to dress. We barely know how to talk to other people.
Oh, my God.
But we get it. And I think he said, I've found my tribe. This is my tribe.
Yeah.
And
well said.
Yeah, I say this to my wife all the time, too. My wife is a musician, and she sings and things like that. And I've always been some sort of performer. And I said, baby, all we're looking for is our tribe. There's only, I can talk to anybody at length about anything. I told you this. I think people are interesting. But I can sit there and riff. There's talking, and then there's riffing. There's being on the same wavelength. I can riff with voice actors, on-camera actors, comedians, even musicians to some degree. I get it because I've done the gigs. I've done the live gigs and the traveling.
That's you put in your 10,000 hours.
Yeah, that's a tribe, and I immediately slot into their wavelength, into their lane. And no matter who you are, if you're a welder, then find your tribe of welders if that's what you're meant to do, because you're not going to be happy until you start hanging out with the people that think like you, and sometimes people who don't, so you can challenge yourself.
Right.
But if you really want to be happy, you've got to find the people that understand you. I
could not agree more. And you and I clearly got that at a pretty young age, because the very first thing I did when I got to LA, we lived in, I came out with a high school buddy, and we got an apartment in Hermosa and then Redondo, whatever. And the first thing I did was find improv classes, acting classes, people who were of a like mind. I craved that. I wanted that input. I am a living, breathing example of a high tide raises all boats. My God, Chris, you and I are lottery winners.
Yeah.
And we know it.
Yeah.
And how could we not get better? Look who we're surrounded with every day.
Yeah.
But all the people with whom we work, I've known Tress MacNeille, in my view, the preeminent voice actress ever in the history of Hollywood, ever. And I've known Tress since she was a cocktail waitress at Charlie Brown's in the Marina.
Really?
Yep. We've been friends, close friends for 40 years. And she still has the birth picture of my son on her, and a magnet on her refrigerator at her beautiful crib in Beverly Hills, but my point is, I've got a chance to watch her star rise. Same with Welker, same with Billy West, same with Maurice, same with Jess, same with D. Bradley Baker, and now new people, Eric Bauza, and young folks coming in all the time. And I embrace them because they come up to me. Well, Rick and Morty. I work on Rick and Morty, and my God, talk about a talented kid. Justin Roiland and his partner Dan Harmon, and first gig I got on that show, they're going, wow, well, Justin's saying, I can't tell you what this means to me. And I thought he was screwing with me.
Yeah.
And what he was saying was, I grew up and Pinky and the Brain and Animaniacs were instrumental in informing my sense of humor, my sort of comedy ethos.
Mm-hmm.
And I vowed that if I were ever in the position in which I find myself right now, I would do what I'm doing today. I was going to hire Rob, Tress, and he did.
Mm-hmm.
And what a glorious experience for both of us, because I had the same experience. I'm not nearly that smart. I don't know how to create my own show. You'd think I would by now, but the 2 times that I got to work with Mel Blanc, I sat right next to him. And and Gordon Hunt, the late, great Gordon Hunt, knew what I was about in my improv chops, and everybody wanted to work with Mel Blanc. And we were working on a Jetsons project, I think 1987.
Mm-hmm.
And at Hanna-Barbera, he said, "Hey, Robbie, Mel's here. You want to sit next to Mel?" I said, and I immediately kind of was doing this, and I sat next to him, and I mustered up the courage to look at this really sweet old man. He was probably close to 80 at the time.
Uh-huh.
And I said, "Mr. Blank, what a privilege, honestly. Well, thank you, young man. Thank you." And he hears that every day.
Yeah, of course.
So I said, "If it's not too much trouble, would you?" And he knew exactly what I wanted, just like the sweet person who wanted to hear from Carl Weezer. And as soon as I do it, look what happens to your face, Chris. You can't help it. And it's not even gas. It just happens. Yeah. Isn't that remarkable?
Yeah.
Right? It just happens. Okay. So I'm sitting next to Mel Blanc, the best of us. And he knew what I wanted. So he looks at me and says, "Yeah, what's up, Doc?" And I did what I'm doing now. It was ethereal. It was transfixing. It was transportive. Like I was back in Livonia, Michigan, eating Rice Krispies, watching duck season, rabbit season, fire.
Yeah.
The very same thing that inspired Steven Spielberg to become a director.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean to be like a little theatrical, but dude, I'm an actor.
Yeah.
The point I'm getting at is that all of this is so powerful. And at my age, I'm starting to understand finally the extent to which the characters that you and I and others are our personal friends.
Mm-hmm.
are we don't draw them and we don't write them, but we get the love. And it's incumbent upon us to remind the audience that it's a really deeply collaborative effort, just like Jerry Seinfeld said.
Yeah.
And our tribe
right.
is this group of people. But the extent to which these characters change people's lives, sometimes keep them from hurting themselves, sometimes get them through an acrimonious divorce because of their parents, maybe get them through throat cancer. It is no small thing. And I fucking get it now.
Yeah.
And it's way bigger than a paycheck, folks.
Yeah.
It's remarkable. It's remarkable.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate that because of COVID, we can't have conventions right now. It's also necessary.
Well, we have COVID Con.
Yeah, we have COVID Con. Yeah. So it's also necessary. Nobody wants to go to a room full of people right now. But,
right.
And at the conventions, like I never did that many of them. I was going to start doing more this year because I just wanted to be with my family. Yeah. But when you're at a convention, like I did some Comic-Cons, and you get to see the effect this has on people personally. And you've done plenty of these. That's when it does sort of start to hit home a little bit. You think, wow, this was to me something I was doing to, for fun. I really enjoy it. I got a nice paycheck and I get to live in this magical city where dreams can come true. And you get in your own head. You think about how it's impacting your life. Well, this is the car I'm able to buy now because of this, and I can put this much away. And I'm going to work with so and so. Then you go to a convention, or in this case, you have an interaction with someone on a chat, and you start to hear their story about what you did and what it meant in their life. It's like I never thought that I was having that impact. I thought that was everybody else.
Isn't that the truth?
That was having an impact. Yeah. I just thought I was moving through, not making an impact on anyone but myself.
Well, and you nailed it, Chris, because of the nature of, again, nice folks like you taking the time, to do this for all these wonderful folks watching, and the nature of social media, and the fact that these sweet folks watching take the time to say, oh my God, I never knew that the guy that does Yakko is also the guy that does Carol. Yeah. And that starts to spread in a really happy virus sort of way. But I've probably done 50 conventions now in the last 10 years.
Okay.
I come home from every single one of those live events. They're generally 3 days, utterly exhausted from saying thank you to people whom I never knew personally, but sometimes they drive for 3 or 4 hours. Sometimes they fly. Then they find a way to buy a ticket. Then they rent a room. Then they park at the event. Then they have to stand in line. Then they have to buy food, and they sort out whose line they want to stand in. And by the time they make it up to me or Kevin Conroy or Mark Hamill or Chris Edgerly or whomever, a lot of times these people have spent money that they've saved for a year or two. And before they make it to us, they've dropped one large.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Then they fall all over themselves telling me how important I am to them. How on earth can I quantify that compliment? Then they take a little bit longer, and I'll use a perfect example, exactly what you're talking about. We now find that folks on the autism spectrum often find enormous relief, joy, utter joy, to the extent that they're able to get outside of their own head and communicate, and even find ways to become verbal through animated characters. It's not about Rob. It's about Yakko, or Pinky, or Carol, or Raphael, or Donatello, or Snowball. That's what it's about. But you or I are the vessel. And the number of times that I've had this experience, it's nothing short of astonishing and glorious. And I can illustrate it. This I was at an event, I don't know, 8 or 9 months ago, and a woman came up to me who had brought her autistic brother, 28 years old, who not only was autistic, but his autism was also really, really made even more difficult because, as you guys probably know, a lot of folks on the spectrum suffer from issues of really desperate anxiety, agoraphobia, impossibly, like I don't want to hear loud voices, loud lights. Right. It's okay. But Yakko was this young man's spirit animal. His sister knew that. So she said, Anthony, the gentleman who does Yakko is going to be at this event. Now, there are going to be a lot of people there. I will be there. I will take you. But you think something you want to do? I'm in. Okay. So they drive, Chris, for 3 hours. And in the car, the young man she says, is doing this. Okay. Then they get into the event. And then he's in line because I happen to have a good line that day.
Yeah.
But he's a mess, Chris. The young man is perspiring. He's rocking back and forth. And his sister comes to the front of the line and says, that's my brother. And she explained, I don't know if you know about autism. I said, I do. I have an autistic nephew. I've learned a lot. I do a lot of work on behalf of, and I'm fine. So God bless this young man. He makes it up to me. And again, he's a mess, you guys. But it wasn't about anything except that at the end of this mess for him was going to be this carrot in the guy's, he didn't know what the hell I looked like. It didn't matter.
Right.
But he was going to hear Yakko. And it could have been Bart. It could have been Winnie the Pooh. It doesn't matter. Okay. So he comes up and I said, hey buddy, how you doing? And he was tearful and apologizing and just all over the place. And then all of a sudden I start doing this. And his sister sent a video and photographs of this experience. And within 20 seconds, he went from literally this and tears and perspiration to all of a sudden, I just kind of got his attention, and he was getting his shit together. And then all of a sudden, Yakko starts talking. And it went like, big eyes, smile, everything. And he was literally out of his circumstance. Like that. And it went on as long as Yakko spoke. And then he loved this song that Yakko does about all the countries of the world. So I sang it for him. And while I was singing it, he's doing this. But utterly joyful. The type of joy that you get when you see your the type of joy you get when you see your child born. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Deep stuff the kind of difficulty that I will never have to go through in my lifetime for any reason. You know what I mean? I get nervous going to the dentist.
Yeah.
This was crippling anxiety, but he went through it so he could hear a fucking cartoon character.
Yeah.
So now, and I'm sorry for the long-winded explanation, but
that's why you're here.
Your point is, and it's so well, we get it now.
Yeah.
And I don't take my gig, I never took it for granted, but I have to say that it has taken on a much deeper importance, because I know if there's one, there are thousands that really gives me a kind of reason to do this at this level until I just can't freaking do it anymore.
Right. And it's funny because one of my friends, it's an old friend, someone I knew in Savannah, my hometown, when I was in my early 20s, Chris Bass is here. And he hears you say, I sang the countries of the world, the nations of the world song. And he chats, he says, sing it now. I said, well, maybe at the end.
Right.
I can't believe that you sang, because I was on a panel with you at Comic-Con, and somebody asked, and I guess you had been waiting for this, and this is one of the huge rooms. It's Mark Evanire's animation voices, cartoon voices panel.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and it was by rote. Somebody said, are you going to sing the song? I don't even know if it was called by its name anymore. It was just the song, and you did. And it was just,
the song.
You just banging out, and everybody's clapping. And I thought, that's also a long song. And, when someone's in line to see you, there's somebody behind them. When's my turn? And you're doing the Nations of the World song for this one guy in line. Usually it doesn't happen in line. Usually it's because there's a whole
exactly.
crowd.
And usually it happens at a Q&A, a panel. And because I understand it's my stairway to heaven.
Right.
And I also understand that often there are half a dozen other actors up there. And look, I'm good at my job, but we live in Hollywood, man. You can throw a dart and hit a good singer.
Yeah.
Right? You're married to a good singer.
Yeah.
What you can't do is throw a dart and hit somebody who can write that shit.
Yeah, I know.
And so all my friends, we're all fans of one another, but what I try to do is at least be decent and say, look, I'd be happy to do the song if everybody up here is okay, but let's save it for the end, because it's a really tough act to follow.
Yeah.
But the magic of the song is, I'm grateful that I got to sing it, and I'll never get tired of singing it. The problem is when somebody stops asking.
Yeah.
But here's the story behind that remarkable song. What's your buddy's name in Savannah?
Chris Bass.
Chris.
Yeah, for those of you who are not Pinky and the Brain fans, this is is it called Countries of the World or Nations of the World?
It's called Yakko's World.
Yakko's World. Okay. Rob, through the character of Yakko, okay, so that's from Animaniacs, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah. And Rob is able to, and I'm still amazed that you can do this, and yes, it was written beautifully, sing every single nation in the world. You list every single country in the world, and it's been updated because of geopolitics. So Rob, through this wonderful song, basically sings every single country in the world. And I guess for you folks at home with Google Maps, you can check him later because I know he's gonna do it. But
okay,
yes,
so
to Chris
so
Bass, yes, you were speaking to
okay,
Chris.
Chris, check this out, Chris. This is, and by the way, this is for not only is this is for you, Chris, ultimately, but we were touching earlier on how the Jones to perform, that we start doing it because it just makes our soul happy.
Right.
You know, and to use that hackneyed old addiction expression, it's kind of true. The first one's free, baby, but after that, forget it. But the reason coming to Hollywood or New York or wherever, or Atlanta now is a hotbed of performing, Austin, is because you want to find the people who are better than you, people who can make you better. And the song Yakko's World has become, I think, almost inarguably iconic. It's a brilliant song written by my friend Randy Rogel. But this story, in terms of the creative spirit and how you never know who you're going to run into, who is totally like you, starting at the bottom of, you know, the bottom rung, and we're all blue collar workers in the dream factory now, right? But Randy Rogel, who wrote this, went to West Point, graduates from West Point, which is no small thing.
No.
Right? Then he goes to Boston University because he wants another freaking degree. Then he starts working in corporate America after serving the country, because that's part of the deal with West Point.
Yeah.
So he's in corporate America for 3 or 4 years, making a nice 6-figure salary, but he's a writer. He's a singer. He's a dancer. He's an actor. He's a songwriter, right? So he finally says, you know what? I put in my time. I'm going to go to work in Hollywood. Finds his way here, bangs on the door, gets a job at Warner Brothers Animation, writing for Batman, no small deal. Batman, the animated series. Then goes out and wins an Emmy his first year. Across the hall, he hears from the same group who used to do a show called Tiny Toon Adventures with Mr. Spielberg, is now doing a new show from a clean sheet of paper called Animaniacs. And he says, oh my God, that's my jam. That's my tribe. Because yeah, I can write drama. I love the Emmy. I'm not going to give it back, but I'm so about musical comedy. I'm about a variety show. This is my jam. Please let me audition for you. And they're like, no, dude, you just won an Emmy for Batman. This is a big deal, man. Mark Hamill's the Joker. You got some more Batman stuff. So Randy bangs on the door, just like Hollywood. Nobody knows who he is, except that he gets this job. Finally, they let him in and say, all right, what have you got? What do you want to play for us that you wrote that you think might be appropriate for our show? That song was in his back pocket.
Really?
Yes. So that's the level of talent that's unknown. This guy had this frickin' Nations of the World song in which he rhymes all the sovereign nations in his back pocket and says, how about this? Bum, ba-dum, 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 ba. Okay. So that is to set this up. And if that's okay, can I go ahead and do it now?
Yeah, let's do it now, because one person, Eternal Amady, if you want to hang out, he's going to do the song now, because one person, they're on a much later time stream.
Great. All right, so I'll do it right now.
Yeah, okay, here we go.
Here we go.
Here.
And I will include at the end, I will set it up, but I will include the new lyric, but it goes like this. United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru, Republic, Dominican, Cuba, Caribbean, Greenland, El Salvador, too, Puerto Rico, Colombia, Venezuela, Honduras, Guyana, and still Guatemala, Bolivia, then Argentina, and Ecuador, Chile, Brazil, Costa Rica, Belize, Nicaragua, Bermuda, Bahamas, Tobago, San Juan, Paraguay, Uruguay, Suriname, Antilles, Guyana, Barbados, and Guam, Norway, and Sweden, and Iceland, and Finland, and Germany now one piece, Switzerland, Austria, Czechoslovakia, Italy, Turkey, and Greece, Poland, Romania, Scotland, Albania, Ireland, Russia, Oman, Bulgaria, Saudi Arabia, Hungary, Cyprus, Iraq, and Iran, there's Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Jordan, both Yemen, Kuwait, and Bahrain, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, Belgium, and Portugal, France, and Denmark, and Spain, India, Pakistan, Burma, Afghanistan, Thailand, Nepal, and Bhutan, Cambodia, Malaysia, then Bangladesh, Asia, and China, Korea, Japan, Mongolia, Laos, and Tibet, Indonesia, the Philippine Islands, Taiwan, Sri Lanka, New Guinea, Sumatra, New Zealand, and Borneo, and Vietnam, Tunisia, Morocco, Uganda, Angola, Zimbabwe, Djibouti, Botswana, Mozambique,
Mozambique, Zambia, Swaziland, Gambia, Guinea, Algeria, Ghana. But wait, there's more. Burundi, Lesotho, and Malawi, Togo, the Spanish Sahara is gone. Niger, Nigeria, Chad and Liberia, Egypt, Benin and Gabon, Tanzania, Somalia, Kenya and Mali, Sierra Leone and Algeria, Dahomey, Namibia, Senegal, Libya, Cameroon, Congo, Zaire, Ethiopia, Guinea-Bissau, Madagascar, Oman, Mayo, and Cayman, Hong Kong, Abu Dhabi, Qatar, Yugoslavia, Crete, Mauritania, then Pennsylvania, Monaco, Liechtenstein, Malta, and Palestine, Fiji, Australia, Sudan. Okay, now, that's the main song. Thank you very much. Sorry, Yakko's voice is a little tired because he's been working. But, Chris, dude, check this out. Because at every convention for the last 25 years, there would inevitably be one person in the audience say, Mr. Paulsen, I have a question. Yes, please. What can I do for you? Well, you do know that that song really is no longer relevant because there have been, you know where I'm going.
Yeah.
So then I say, oh yeah, I see what you're saying. What's your, my name is Curtis. Okay, Curtis, come here. Oh, sir, no, just come here. That's fine. The hell's the matter with you? You go right there, and it's no longer relevant, whatever. So Randy, God bless him, says, he's right. So he writes the following lyric, which he sprang on me a year ago. Okay. It goes like this. Montenegro and Bosnia, Herzegovina, the Soviet Union is gone. South Africa, Georgia, Moldova, Latvia, Belarus, Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, hey, Kazakhstan, hey. Then there's Tajikistan too. Hey, Turkmenistan, hey, Kurdistan, Armenia, Tonga, Palau, Lithuania, Serbia, Kosovo, US Samoa, the Balkans, Brunei, Macau and Crimea, then Eritrea, Ukraine and Estonia, here's Macedonia, New Caledonia, Eastern Slavonia, Ivory Coast and Cape Verde, Andorra, the Solomon Islands, Dubai. How about that? Right?
Yes.
I mean, it never stops. He didn't write that for money. He did it to save my ass.
Yeah.
It's the coolest thing in the world, man.
Imagine having that song in your back pocket. That is an assignment song. That's where somebody kicks your door open and says, "Nations of the world, tomorrow." Right. And then you leave and you go, how the fuck am I going to write that? No one ever thought to write that. This guy sat down and thought, this would be really fun if I recounted every nation in the world.
Exactly.
To a nice Latin beat.
And that's what I love. Randy and I have a licensing deal with Warner Brothers Animation by which we take the music of animating acts around the country and do it live. And when you see Yakko's World with a 50-foot screen and the iconic 2.5-minute cartoon, you see the visuals, but all the music orchestrally and my voice is all coming from the stage, like Bugs on Broadway.
Right.
And every cue is nailed. Oh my God, it's the coolest parlor trick in the world. But yeah, I love telling that story because Randy won't. Just like we were saying, these people are the nicest, most deferential, but are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Then we do songs from Animaniacs that they put the kibosh on, and we play the song you grew up listening to, and the B version that they didn't like. And you kind of go, what didn't you like about it? What's wrong with that? But Randy, being a staff writer, after he obviously got the gig, they would say, we're not crazy about it. Let's try something else. And I'd go, oh my God, what could be better? And then he writes something better, because that's when you see that when art and commerce, sort of converge.
Right.
Because now your mortgage payment is dependent on you being able to call up your art to satisfy the guy who's writing the checks. That's tough, because you're going, oh my God, what's wrong with that? Yeah, they're not really crazy. They don't really like to. So go back into the wherever you write, and I need it. By the way, we need it tomorrow. Actually, we need it by today because we have to get a scratch vocal done. So you got a couple hours. If you could tweak this couple of the middle two stanzas, when it becomes difficult.
Yeah,
but they do it.
And this is very helpful for anybody on the stream too who's wondering about what it's like to be a voice actor, because I know that, and you've probably encountered this a lot now too. Thanks to the internet, people who live all around the country, all around the world, who either are not ready or are not able to come here to pursue their dream. Through technology, they can submit auditions. They can do a lot of it's non-union stuff, but they can work. But what they don't end up getting a lot is the training in how to be an actor in the working sense. Yeah. And it's like what you say. Yesterday, I'm busy doing my stream, and I get this email, and it says, we need this audition back by 5:30 today. And I'm thinking, okay, I should get this in before the stream, because by the end of the stream, I may not be in the right headspace for it. I'll be tired. I got to do something with the kids. So commerce is always intersecting with art when you're trying to be a working actor, and they'll say, we need it now. And a lot of people think, well, I need time to create and prepare. It's like, okay, if you need that time, that's fine. The guy who doesn't need it is going to book it because he's going to bang it right out. And you can teach yourself how to get those creative juices going faster, or like your friend Randy, you can just be plunged into a situation where you don't have a choice. You better be creative now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I crave those. Mm-hmm. And I have learned to be in a position. That's why I studied improv. That's why I continue to work on stuff. But you know, the masters whose feet I got to study at were people like Lorraine Newman and Tress MacNeille and Phil Hartman and Paul Rubens. And, you know, these people are the best of the best, and they're terrifyingly inspirational. Mm-hmm. But you work with those folks all the time too. And so I embrace that. And so that's what I tell people, like, yeah, you're right. The technology exists for you not having to move from Watertown, New York, and spend a lot more money by living in Southern California. But I got to say, a part of not even part, an integral part of my success and continuing success is being plunged into this pool with the guy who was the funniest guy in his high school, or the girl who was the greatest singer in her, college music class, because I get to meet these people. Yeah. And I'm still going, holy crap, I could learn from that person. And I do. Yeah. And so I love it when somebody says, what else you got, Rob? Mm-hmm. Oh, fire it up. Yeah. I'm not afraid of that anymore. I crave that. And to your point, Chris, if you need your time, great. But if you need your time to be creative, that's okay. But I can't even tell you the number of characters that I've created on the fly because an opportunity has been presented to me by a producer. Mm-hmm. And instead of being afraid of it, I and you and Billy and Mo and Hank, we say, sure, jump into it. Right. It may not work at that time, but I've created things on the spur of the moment that I know actors did a better impression of the producer asking, can you do a Barney Fife down nuts? Yeah. But if you're really somebody who can channel it, Jeff Bennett can channel it. Mm-hmm. You know what? Here, Rob, if you don't mind. No, I'll throw it out. And then they hear it, they go, hey, it works great. And all of a sudden they write it into 10 more episodes. Mm-hmm. That happens all the time. Yeah. So I would absolutely suggest to get by that fear. But again, it's another reason to come to LA or to go to New York. Yeah. Because it's much more expensive. I totally get that. Mm-hmm. But you're surrounded by people like Chris and Nancy, and you get to meet these people one way or another. And we're giving a lecture or a class, or Phil Lamar is doing something at the Groundlings, and you're there. Those are the people you want to be around because they make you better, man.
Yeah. I remember asking my uncle, I talked to two different people that went to Harvard, which is the pinnacle of higher education in this country. Usually that's what it's referred to as. And one was my uncle and the other was a comedian I was working with. He was headlining. We were in Erie, Pennsylvania. Oh. And he had graduated. He was graduated from Harvard, to use proper English, proper grammar. Both my uncle and this comedian, They had the same opinion of Harvard in this way. Like, my uncle thought the instructors were great. The comedian thought the instructors weren't anything special. But both of them said, here's why it's Harvard. Because you're going to be around some of the most amazing minds. The other students that they pluck from every corner of the world to come here, they get the best, most interesting minds, and you're surrounded by that. And so you can't help but be influenced by that. And that is true.
Beautifully said.
Yes. When you come to LA or you go to New York or Chicago or a huge hotbed of wherever performing is, yes, you are going to be surrounded by these people, and you can either make friends with them and learn how to run with them and run at their level and maybe make some of them run at your level, or you can look at that as some sort of intimidating factor and shrink from it. And yeah, because your experience with them is going to be your experience in the booth when the producer says, what are some of your ideas? What do you think? You know, we need to come up with something here. What do you got? I mean, this just happened to me for a video game I recorded. They said, hey, let's get that Chris Edgerly brain to work. What do you have, some line suggestions? You don't usually get that. I thought, well, I better. I mean, he's built me up. I better give him something.
But also, you're ready.
Yeah.
You're ready for it.
Yeah.
And you know, when I've done, I don't know, 2,500 half hours of animation, and you've done hundreds and hundreds of Simpsons episodes, and I don't know, 1,000 commercials, on and off, whatever. But that means that I probably auditioned for, I don't know, 4,000 things that I haven't got.
Oh, more than that for me.
Yeah, 1,000, right? Okay. But for that 4 or 5 minutes, for whatever reason, that producer, that young man, that young woman, that old man, that old woman, whomever, they've decided that Chris Edgerly is worth 5 minutes of their time. Mm-hmm. And it's up to Chris to say, all right, I got to get the dog to the vet later. Nothing, my air conditioner didn't work, but that's later too. But right now, I have this opportunity that there are 1,000 other actors in town who would kill for this 5 minutes. So I have got to be ready to rock and roll. And I crave now when a producer says, what do you got? You got anything else, Chris? You got anything else, Rob? And it was, again, God bless him, Phil Hartman, who helped me so much, because again, when I was working with Phil before he became Phil, he was 8 years older than I. And I remember saying to him after some stupid freaking riff that he was doing, that I just sat there with agog. And he was going, how you doing, buddy? And I said, I'm a little bit freaked out. And he was just a really good guy, you know? And he said, what's going on? I said, I can't do what you do. And he started laughing. Oh man, like, thanks a lot, Rob. But I mean, everybody complimented him. He was, you know, a star. But he made it clear. He goes, you're not supposed to be me, dude. You can't be me. And I don't want you to be me. I'm trying to find out how to be me at a higher level every day so I can get a job. And by the way, he called me the day he got SNL. I will never forget it. It was fantastic. But he was working really hard every day to try to get to the next best level of Phil Hartman. Mm-hmm. So what I coined my own phrase about terrifyingly inspirational. And that's what I told Phil. I said, that's what you are. And I chose the A choice, Chris, of what your analogy was perfect. I said, all right, I can either shrink from this and go, I can't fucking do that, or take the advice of this guy who's a rock star and say, you got the goods. You're working. You're here with me. I took Phil's advice. He was going, dude, you're here.
Yeah.
You got a job. You're pretty good. So what he was saying in so many words is, why don't you look at me as an inspiration? And that's exactly what I did. Mm-hmm. And it was liberating, Chris. It all of a sudden went from, shit, I can't do that. You know, what's wrong with you? You can't, oh my God, you'll never be that good, to saying, well, you don't have to be that good. He's trying to be that good. So how can you find a way to do exactly what he's doing on his behalf for yourself? Because let him inspire you. Mm-hmm. Robin Williams did that with Jonathan Winters, that's what you do, man.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that I was able to take that course, because he was one of dozens of actors, some of them way younger than I, who still continue to make me go, holy shit, I want to learn how you do that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's a challenge, obviously. I mean, anything worthwhile is going to have a series of challenges in the way, because somebody figured out well before you how worthwhile this is, and they're going to make sure you can't get it.
Yeah.
Somebody, I think, once told me, said, "What's it like when you move to LA?" It's like, well, it's kind of weird. They love new faces, they love new people, but at the same time, there's this part of the industry that is desperately trying to get you to get back on that bus and go home. So, like, no, we don't need any more. And usually it's other, like angry actors who haven't made it yet, and they're trying to elbow you back out. But and that's just to get into a business and work. And then you have life challenges. And I'm rather clumsily steering it towards this way. But sure. I mean, I was in awe of your career and you for years anyway, before I got a chance to meet you. But I have to admit, I mean, obviously, you get into the studio, you get to work with somebody. I think we worked on a Honda spot. You had been Mr. Opportunity for years. And I thought, I get to work with Mr. Opportunity. I wasn't thinking about Yakko, Warner, or Pinky and the Brains. Like, I love those spots.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
Yeah. And so we hang out, we talk a little bit. And I thought, okay, it takes some of the luster off to realize, oh, he's standing at the same mic that I have a mic just like that in front of me. And it's he took the same 101 to the 405 to whatever to get here. Okay, fine, fine. But I have to admit, hearing about and reading about, long before I asked you to be on this stream, I read your book, and it deals with your experience with throat cancer. And I would hope that you'd be able to share some of whatever you're comfortable sharing with the chat.
Absolutely.
It isn't just that people go through this. You went through this. And it's the one thing that it's the last thing you would ask to have hit you when you do what you do for a living.
Yeah. Well, and firstly, thank you for asking. And that's why the book is important. Why Voice Lessons was important for me. I had a marvelous career, but I thought the last thing the world needs is a celebrity bio from a non-celebrity. And we've touched on this. It's not false modesty. Mm-hmm. I'm good at my job. You're good at your job. But the characters are famous. I don't draw them. I don't write them. Most people don't wait in line for the next Rob Paulsen movie. And I get the difference. And I'm fine with that. But after having had throat cancer, I thought, well, now I have an interesting story, simply because of the very nature of the type of cancer and what I do for a living. Mm-hmm. And the reason that people might know me. But what is so important about my experience, Chris, is when I was diagnosed, I was 59. And I remember that the day I was diagnosed, I was in the room I'm in right now. My doctor called and I said, what do you think? He said, how you doing? I said, I don't know. How am I doing? He said, well, it's cancer. Stage 3 squamous cell carcinoma, metastatic squamous cell carcinoma. It had a tumor at the base of my throat, base of my tongue in my throat, that had spread to a lymph node in my neck, and that's how it was discovered. But never once did I or my wife or my son freak out and say, why me, or anything like that. And that is not to say that it's not okay to do that. Everybody has to deal with it in their own way. It is something I would never, of course, wish on somebody, but it's a very treatable form of cancer. And that's what I was told at the beginning. Here's the deal, Rob. We're virtually sure we can cure you. That is 80%. But before we do, we almost have to kill you. The treatment is brutal for obvious reasons: throat, swallowing, eating. But what I already knew, and what I learned even more through my treatment, was how much joy and how much courage and how much empathy I already had in me as a result of these characters. And here's how I can explain that. The first show I worked on that became inarguably iconic was Teenage Mutant Frickin' Ninja Turtles. There are places on this world, where we can go who may not know Brad Pitt. Mm-hmm. But if you say Leonardo, they won't even reference Da Vinci. They'll think the turtle. Mm-hmm. That's how big this franchise is, right? And as a result of that, and then Pinky and the Brain, Animaniacs, Goof Troop, Gummy Bears, The Mask, The Tick. And as a result of that, Yakko or Pinky or Carl, I forgot about Jimmy Neutron, all those characters would be asked countless times to call children around the world. Sometimes it's a birthday party. Sometimes it's because they're grown children and they want to hear from their favorite Ninja Turtle. But most of the time, it was kids who were on their way out. Mm. And you have children. Yeah. I have a grown one. I got to know how deeply these characters connected with people, not because I'm famous, but because their little boy or girl lived for Yakko or lived for Raphael or Donatello or whatever. So I already, and I had gotten to experience that. Even if the doctors had said, we'll keep you comfortable, but you're on your way out. You better go home and just get your stuff together. I'd had nothing about which to be sad. I wasn't a 30-year-old father of two. I wasn't a 30-year-old father of two and one, in their brain. And I'd spoken to those children. Jesus Christ Almighty, Chris, how do those parents wake up in the morning? How do they move on once they have to bury their child? How do they do it? And I'd experienced that tangentially and vicariously for 30 years. Mm-hmm. So my relative diagnosis was, I'm not going to like this, but it could be a lot worse.
Right.
Okay. But then during the treatment, many of these children who had died and their parents knew when their little girl was talking to Pinky or their little boy was hearing for the third time from Raphael, they knew that their babies were on their way out. They knew it. And they're sending me a video or a picture of, oh my God, Rob, Jordy's been gone for 15 years, but we heard about your cancer. Every time we talk to Jordy at night, we put in a good word for you, but you will never know. Here's a picture, the last one of Jordy talking to you. Talking to Raphael. Are you kidding me? That started happening over and over and again. And again, it was about the fans and the parents and children who said, this is me talking to Carl Wieser when I was 11 and I had my bone marrow transplant, but I'm now married. Mm-hmm. And here are my family, and we watch the Jimmy Neutron movie once a week. Are you fucking kidding me? These people sought me out to say, you got this, because you don't even know how much joy and strength and empathy you have living in your fucking head. And forgive me, but that's how powerful it is, because I have to swear. It's just, you know what I mean? It's just, so that's why the book is powerful, because I learned that. And I was told by the doctors, we can save you and you'll be able to speak. Can you do your gig at the same level?
Yeah.
We don't know. But I had already had the gift of a lifetime over and over and over and over and over again. And it made me understand that whether or not I can do Yakko at the same, I just sang a goddamn song, and I think probably people liked it. And it turns out that not only do I have the greatest gifts any actor, any human could ever want, because if you make children and their parents happy, and now these grown children happy, how much more good can it get? But now I can actually do my gig again after cancer. That's the story. And so to the extent that someone is watching because you're kind enough to have me on, and somebody is watching this and they're going, man, I don't know how to tell my wife this, but I really think that there's something in Rob Paulsen's story She loves Animaniacs. And I think if I don't care if you borrow the book or use it to level out a table, it doesn't matter. If my story can be as inspirational to someone who inspired me, and it was hundreds of children, many of whom have died, inspired me. That's what we're here for. That's the good news. That's the platinum lining. Not just that I'm able to do my job, that I'm able to do it and share it with people who would have been watching me anyway. Holy shit, Chris, you've given me a bully pulpit that I could never pay enough people to. So that's why it's important. And I really appreciate you. And as a result of that, because there are people who in all disciplines who love cartoons and love to laugh, I am now the spokesman for the 2020 spokesman for the Head and Neck Cancer Alliance.
Oh, really?
So if you go to headandneck.org, you will see yours truly. And I now have the same gig that Jim Kelly, quarterback for the Buffalo Bills, bless his heart, has had more than one go around with type of cancer.
Yeah, he
Talk
has,
about a hero,
yeah.
right? And he had this gig before me, and before him it was Michael Douglas. So I know what I'm talking about. And now I'm educated because the folks at the Head and Neck Cancer Alliance have, they're big fans of Pinky and the Brain.
Right.
And they figured that maybe there's some way that Pinky can talk about head and neck cancer.
No, and I can. So go to headandneck.org and you will see yours truly, and you will learn all sorts of stuff about this cancer that can really be life-saving, and lots of ways so that your children, there's a new vaccine for young women and young men to keep HPV-related cancers like yours truly, that Gardasil will protect young men and young women. And now HPV cancers in men and women, in men in their like 40s to 60s have surpassed cervical cancer that are HPV related in women in terms of their ubiquity. So we can protect our children from having to go through it from cervical cancer or from head or neck cancer. I'm talking about tonsil, throat, tongue, mouth, neck. And it's sadly becoming very prevalent. But check out headandneck.org, especially parents of young men and young women, and you can make your own decision.
Right.
But please check this out. And if you end up getting diagnosed like yours truly, you can do it.
Yeah.
You can make it. It's tough, but the payoff is so worth it. And that's why my story is powerful, because the same things that pay my rent, it turns out that empathy and kindness and joy and love and courage for folks on the autism spectrum, or even folks who have been diagnosed with cancer, like love, come from the most unexpected places. And I'm here to talk about it, and I know what I'm talking about. So thank you very much for the opportunity, bud.
Is this something that typically is diagnosed only in the later stages because you have to notice a lump, or is it usually something they can pick out sooner?
Well, it depends on the way it presents itself.
Yeah.
Some people become hoarse. Okay. Some people have trouble swallowing.
Okay.
Some people have something that hurts them and it just doesn't go away after a barrage of antibiotics. And in my case, I was pretty stupid because this lump had presented itself 6 months before I went to my doctor, because I felt it. You could have felt it. I said, what do you think about that? You'd have said, dude, what the hell is wrong with you? You'd have said, go to the doctor. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't tell my wife because I knew what she would have said. She said, hey, asshole. And she would have been right. But, typical weekend warrior, hockey player, athlete, unless I can't feel an extremity or I'm losing blood, I just waited for my yearly physical. 5 seconds, Chris. I had my internist put his hands on it. He said, no, not good. I said, come on. He goes, no, if that were, oh, by the way, because I read online, it could have been cancer, several different kinds, or it could have been just as probably a low-grade infection, so that's what I chose to believe.
Yeah.
But the doctor said, nah, this is a knot. It's not a soft, squishy.
Right.
It's a hard knot. And he was right. And within, I don't know, 7 or 8 days, a couple of biopsies, it was diagnosed as stage 3 because this was the area to which the cancer had spread.
Right.
It was
metastatic. Yeah.
Right. And that was the diagnostic metastatic stage 3 squamous cell carcinoma with occult primary. And that's precisely what the name suggests. The primary tumor was not this. This was the area that the cancer had spread. It was not like lymphoma. It was not that. So they had to find the occult, the unseen tumor. And they had to do a series of pretty gnarly biopsies because mine, I didn't have a lump that was, palpable.
Right.
Or you could take a laryngoscope through your nose and they couldn't find it.
Yeah.
But the biopsies, which was like a rototiller, it was tough. I mean, I was knocked out, but it was tough. They found it. Then they can map it. And they tell you that it was 7 weeks of daily radiation to this, I had a mask made for my head. I think there's a picture of it in the book.
Right.
And concurrent chemotherapy, no surgery. Because this type of cancer can be very successfully treated. But because of the nature of the deleterious sides of chemo and radiation to this part of your throat, it lights you up.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But I have to tell you again, just like my career, because I wanted the straight dope, because I wasn't, a 30-year-old guy. And I mean, I was nervous, but I asked for a straight dope. I didn't want any surprises. And I have to tell you, the discomfort, the fact that the radiation, the side effects of the radiation are cumulative. That is to say that while I had my fun little calendar on the refrigerator going, 1 week done, ain't that fun?
Yeah.
1 week, week 2, woohoo! Week 3, look at me, whatever, they said, we're going to celebrate with you, but when you're done with your 7 weeks of daily zapping, the side effects of the radiation, while your cancer goes this way, the side effects go this way. So there's going to be about a month or 2 afterwards where you're going to feel like you've been rode hard and put up wet for every fucking day. And they were right. But I didn't experience anything that wasn't expected. The only thing I couldn't prepare for was how I responded. And there were many times that I thought, I can't do this one more day.
Right.
But you do.
Yeah.
And they prepare you with everything that you need. They set you up with people to talk to. I have a wonderful wife, a wonderful son, these incredibly powerful anecdotes from fans and friends who would say, dude, you got my kid through stomach cancer. He's going to be okay. They didn't mean me.
Yeah.
They meant Carl. Because of a couple of, or something I recorded that they would listen to every day after their chemo treatment. You can do this. And so anyway, all of that is to say that we get to a certain point and we all take a few dings before we get out of here, man.
Yeah.
Some people have, they go through a divorce, they go bankrupt 3 times. And maybe become president. I mean, wait a minute, that's the wrong way. But you get my point, is that nobody gets out of here without a couple of dings. But all my dings, with the exception of the throat cancer, all the dings that I've taken and continue to take have been because I chose this life.
Right.
I am a lucky son of a bitch. And now, because I have a certain amount of tangential celebrity and friends like Chris Edgerly, I can talk about something that really might save somebody's life. That's huge.
Yeah. And especially, I understand where you're coming from with saying, I'll just ignore it for a while. I had been through that. I had, not, a lump or anything like that, but you go through this period where, especially if you're a guy, you think, I can handle it. This is not anything that's knocking me down. But I think you sort of innately know I'm ignoring something here. And I bet if I had gone in the day I had first discovered it, maybe would it have been something less than stage 3 if you had acted quickly? I'm saying this not for you to beat yourself up, but for somebody who might be looking in the mirror one day. And,
right.
Yeah.
The chances that, and that's an excellent question. Of course, I had to ask that because I had to defend my position.
Yeah, it's like, well, wouldn't have mattered, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And the truth is, because it presented itself that way, I don't think so.
Okay.
And the doctor said, no, because that you're lucky that it did.
Okay.
Because the tumor, the one that could have ended up killing me, was not bothering me. I was working every day, singing. Excuse me. Sorry. Okay. As my parole officer again.
Yeah.
What
a nag that guy is.
I know. Jesus. Define felony. So they said, frankly, Rob, we're glad that it did. Now, you come in a couple months ago, probably not, because the tumor itself, it was so deep in your tissue that by the time if it hadn't spread, by the time that it got big enough for you to go, wow, I can't swallow food, or, oh, that hurts, then we'd have had to start cutting on you. And we don't know what that would have meant in terms of nerve damage inside. Right. But the good news is that because we don't have to cut on you, we can fix it just with radiation and chemo. There are certain cancers that we would prefer to treat robotically, because we can minimize the tissue damage, because the incisions are so, as long as the tumor margins are taken into account. So in a lot of ways it would have been better, but in your case, we couldn't do it that way. And so this is the best option. The truth is, in 5 years, this might be considered barbaric. But right now, it's the gold standard. Right? And that is the reason for people to go out and to check out headandneck.org, because it allows you to avail yourselves of Gardasil that you might want to consider for your young boys or girls.
For adults, it's not going to, right.
Correct. There's a point at which the HPV vaccine is the human papillomavirus vaccine can cause cancer, like it did in me, like it did in Jim Kelly, like it did in Michael Cooper, like it did in Michael Douglas, like it did in Sammy Davis Jr., Roger Ebert. And Mr. Ebert, bless his heart, he was a profile in courage, because just by his example, he sadly, I didn't know him, but he sadly was not able to get it looked at for whatever reason. Right. And you guys saw how he left.
Lower half of his face was basically.
We have a man who is a nationally syndicated and nationally known TV personality, and was as brave as Farrah. And Farrah Fawcett was brave enough. I will never forget. Talk about courage. Are you kidding me? We have a woman whose ethos and her legend was built on how she looked. And she embraced that, right? But her last act as a performer was to say, I'm going to let you follow me while I get these things done. And we're going to broadcast that on national television. Jesus, Murphy, this was years before I was diagnosed. I think Farrah had HPV-related cancer. I'm not sure. The point is the courage it takes to do that when your bread and butter is exactly this, or for Mr. Ebert to do that when he was unable to even drink water because half his face was taken off.
Right.
That's what my story is important about. So while there are ways to prevent your children from getting the same type of cancer now that wasn't around,
right,
even when your kids were born, and the ways to deal with it in ways that are curable. I'm not in remission, folks. I'm cured.
Really?
I have side effects that took a while to get used to, but they are nothing that I can't deal with. Rob 2.0, I could make the argument. Clearly, I can speak. I haven't shut up for 2 freaking hours, but I can make the argument that Rob 2.0 is better. Again, because of the opportunities afforded me for celebrity with small c, but because of my friends who are in high places, and they say, hey man, I'm doing this stream. I'm there because before I leave, my book, my story, your kindness, and others' interest will make a difference. They will save a life and they will prevent their beautiful babies from getting it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the perfect. It's the reason we do. I mean, I'm living. If you can make a living and do what you would do for free and make more than one a generation cry when all you got to do is say, hey, God, Brian, I think so. But if Jimmy cracks cone and nobody cares, what does he keep doing it? Point. And you make them cry or laugh. Look what happens to you, for Christ's sake. And then you can maybe save lives. I'm a lottery winner.
Yeah.
You know, shame on me if I didn't do it, but I love doing it. So, thanks.
Well, I remember reading in the book too, because one of the things that you notice about you is that you have this sense of humor, and it's always there. And it's a sense of humor is a great shield against the slings and arrows of life. But I remember a part in your book where I think one of the nurse tending to you, she said, okay, I got to set you aside. Rob, every day you come in here, you're joking with everybody. That's great. You're going to need that sense of humor. But I just want to let you know, it's going to get really, really hard for you. And that's for also as a person like myself, a natural jester, to be sat down by an authority figure like a nurse who sees this, who sees the people that don't make it, to sit you aside and say, you better hang on to that sense of humor because it's about to get really fucking dark. That part of the book really struck me because I'm like you. I'm this kid who wants to make the joke all the time. And to have somebody sit you down and say, all right, let's get serious for a minute. It's like, I don't like to get serious.
Oh, it was. You're right. And you know what? It's also been, I have to say, I mean, I've been married for 30 odd years, but it's been a difficult position for my wife too, because my go-to mechanism is to say, you know, cancer schmancer.
Yeah.
And find a way around it because that's my defense mechanism. It's also the way I pay for toothpaste and dog food.
Yeah, you're sitting in it.
Right. But I'm so glad that because you and I are cut from the same cloth, and it really was impactful. And that's why it was important to be in the book, because here's a woman who was about my age and said, okay, hotshot. Because, you know, I was getting my chemo in Beverly Hills. They had private rooms for really famous people. And she got to know these folks. She would say, look, you're not the first person I've run into who's come in here with a great attitude. I'm just telling you, it's going to get gnarly. And I really want you to hold on to it. However, you need to understand that there are going to be people who know that it's better for you to shut up. And there are going to be moments at which we say, all right, that's enough right now, Mr. Funny Boy. Just take a breath and take a half a dozen of these because you're going to need to knock yourself out. It's just, we know what's going to be coming on the south end of this. So let's, and I took her advice. I embraced the people who knew better than I about everything. I asked pertinent questions. Nobody blew me off. They answered every one of them, but I'm smart enough to know what I'm not smart at. And I remember when that sweet lady, Laura, she was my chemo nurse, and she talked to me about the good and the bad and the ugly, about how your body reacts in very embarrassing ways to all that assault.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm just going to tell you what happens if you throw up on the floor. Don't let nobody near it.
I read about that too. Yeah. And you're literally radioactive.
Yeah, I am. It was like I'd lived in 3 Mile Island.
Yeah.
I mean, it was crazy, but they tell that to everybody. However, the sense of humor was instrumental in me getting through it. And she also cautioned me to not lose that. In fact, as you know in the book, it was so glorious. Our mutual buddy, Maurice LaMarche, came in, and we had a couple of times where Mo would come in and literally hold my hand while I was going through my chemo treatment.
Oh.
And we had an occasion in which, it doesn't take long for people to find out what you do, especially because you're like me. I want people to know what I do.
Yeah,
because I know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to smile. I'm going to have a ball.
Yeah.
So anyway, Maurice comes up, he knows I'm having the treatment, and he just happens to find himself at Wilshire and Doheny, and says, "Hey, Rob, I'm in. You need any company?" Son of a, he knew exactly what I was doing. And so, he was like you. He's a smart, sweet guy. Just makes it about somebody else. I said, "Of course, Mo." But I also had an ulterior motive. Mo comes up, and it doesn't take long for the folks to find out in the chemo ward, probably 30 beds or 30 couches, maybe 20, all full, sadly. But they found out not only is Pinky here, fucking Brain is here. And before you knew it, we had oncologists coming in, we had nurses, we had the parking lot attendants. Hey, God, Brain, or Pinky, are you? And I would come, hey, you got any new one of the, you have any of those new responses? Yeah, go ahead, Doc, ask me. Pinky, are you pondering what I'm pondering? And, and Mo is laughing, going, "That sounds pretty good, my friend." And I'm saying, well, I think so, doctor, but if Jack's black and Betty's white, is Marvin gay? Nerve. And oh my God, everybody was, and that was the glorious upshot of Pinky getting his chemo treatment. But the other part of it was that it, made us feel great, and everybody else was laughing. But then there's this sweet woman walking by who was I'd seen her before, a lovely woman, probably a little older than I, she had a scarf on. She didn't have any hair, but it turns out she was in for her third or fourth round of chemo, and Chris, she's walking around with her thing, seeing how everybody else was. And she was getting a huge laugh because she loved Pinky and the Brain. She didn't know what I did, but now she did.
Yeah.
And she was, saying, "Oh, thank you. I love this because I'm walking around." And her job before that, in her eyes, was, "How you doing, sweetheart? Can I get you a bottle of..." She was on her way out. Yeah. They were giving her palliative treatment, and she just loved checking on everybody to make sure they had a breath mint or a bottle of apple juice, whatever. And then she's thanking us because Pinky and the Brain were there. It's just like I said, you never know where love and happiness and joy comes from. It comes from the most unexpected places. And if you're open to it, it literally might come from the person who holds the door for you because you broke your leg. I mean, it's, and I really believe that we can be cognizant of that every day, and it's not superhuman. It's not heroic. It's just plain old nice. And I love being able to share those stories because I lived them. And if today, when I go out to do my errands, because I happen to have a mask on that a fan made for me, I say, "I love that, man. I really was a fan of Ninja Turtles." "Oh, really? Well, are you fucking kidding me? Let me show you something." And then they show you a tattoo and there's Raphael on their arm. I mean, it's crazy.
Yep.
So I as much as I'm able to speak extemporaneously, I am at a loss for the grace with which I have been blessed in my life, man. It's crazy.
Oh, yeah. And this is why I want to open it up for any questions before we let you get out of here and all that. But yeah, the people on the chat who, I see them coming and going in the chat. And this is the thing about streaming. Most people don't sit for the entire interview. They'll go back and forth to other channels to see what else is on. I mean, we thought we had short attention spans with remote controls. This is that really juiced up. But if somebody has gone through anything like that, I'm sure Rob and myself would love to hear about it. If you've gone through any kind of real illness or real disease that needed this kind of severe treatment, I'd love to hear about it. Also, yeah, I mean, what I've loved seeing throughout the throughout the chat we've been having is people throwing your credits out. It's like, oh, okay, Carl
Oh my
Weezer,
God.
Pinky,
Well,
Brain,
I would, and
Yakko.
I just actually, and I implement what you and I spoke about earlier. I don't feel terrible. I feel good physically, but I literally just that phone call was from my agent. And I have to do an audition, and so we're literally, and I just put my glasses on because I didn't want the glare. But what I would love to do, if it's okay with you and your audience, and I would love to do a take 2 of this and do it with your audience specifically for Q&A about cancer, vocal, anything like that, anything that we've covered, any one of my characters, any of that stuff. And I know that was part of the deal beforehand, but I literally just got what we were talking about.
Hey,
if that works for you and your audience, we can blast it out and say, hey man, we're doing
a Q&A.
Chris and Rob take 2, and it's all Q&A. I'd be so down for that. I thank you very much. I apologize in advance, but I'm so down for doing this again, strictly for Q&A.
We'll do Q&A.
You are the real deal, folks.
So
buddy,
are you.
And thank you, folks, for hearing my story.
Sir,
okay, man.
You are my hero. You continue to be.
Thanks, buddy. Right back at you. And thank you, folks, for watching. And by the way, to the extent that your parents all bought action figures for Ninja Turtles, my kids' teeth are straight today as a result of your parents' largesse. So
there you go. Orthodonture. That's what you paid for. All right.
Take care, guys.
Be well, brother. Book it.
All right, man.